Good morning, fellas. I'm Matt, and we've talked about Pokemon's gender system quite a bit, but today we've got even more fun facts about it. We'll go over a few more quirks of the systems that govern Pokemon's genders, and we'll also talk about how the gender of your player character affects speedruns. Alright, let's get started.
What's up? I'm Elias, unless a restaurant asks for my name, in which case I'm Eli because apparently Elias is too hard to pronounce. What's up? I'm Elias, and most legendary Pokemon's genders, or lack thereof, are set in stone. Legendaries is always male, Ogerpon is always female, and Mewtwo is always genderless, for example. But there are a handful of legendaries that can be either male or female. Kubfu and Urshifu are male 87.5% of the time, Heatran's gender ratio is 50-50, and Terapagos,
in the game's code, Terapagos' gender ratio is listed as 50-50. As of now, though, there's only one way to catch it in the main series. During the Indigo Disc in Scarlet and Violet, you catch Terapagos in area -1. I mean the area 0 underdepths. Despite its gender ratio, this Terapagos is hard-coded to always be male. It's incapable of breeding as well, which means you can't legally obtain a female one as of now.
Next up, let's take a look at Pokemon Sword and Shield, because gender ratios kinda don't work at all during wild encounters. In theory, a wild Eevee should have a 7 in 8 chance to be male, but if you go looking for an Eevee on Route 4, you're actually equally likely to find either gender. In fact, most wild Pokemon in these games have a 50% chance to be male and a 50% chance to be female, even if their species gender ratio says otherwise.
There are many kinds of wild encounters in Sword and Shield, and 3 of the primary types are affected by this glitch. There are simple encounters that you see in the overworld, hidden encounters that are lurking in the grass, as well as fishing encounters. For those of you keeping score at home, that's nearly every wild Pokemon in the game.
Oh my god, we've been recording for 2 hours and we're still on page 1?
Slander on the internet, we've been recording for 6 minutes.
When you initiate one of these wild battles, the game effectively flips a coin to determine its gender, instead of going through the normal gender calculations like it's supposed to. When the games first came out, some people noticed that they were finding way more female Eevee than normal, and this is the reason why. The game ignores most wild Pokemon's gender ratios entirely and sets them to 50-50. This glitch doesn't apply to Pokemon that are always male, always female, or genderless.
The glitch is quite handy in some situations though. Like we mentioned in our last video about genders, Combee and Salandit are male the vast majority of the time. That makes their evolutions Vespiquen and Salazzle difficult to obtain, because they're exclusively female. Combee and Salandit are grass encounters in the wild area, so you can use this glitch to find female ones more easily.
Sorry, I have a mouthful of food.
Elias is currently eating an airplane.
Yeah, just like with a fork. Now let's turn our attention to the player characters. Starting in Pokemon Crystal, you can choose to play as a boy or a girl. In a casual setting, the choice you make usually doesn't make a huge difference, but choosing the right gender can be beneficial in speedruns. There are several games where playing as the girl makes you go faster. This is a reference to how girls live longer than boys.
In Pokemon Crystal, the female player character's name is Chris, and the male character is... well, it's complicated. This guy's had several names over the years, depending on what you're playing or watching. In the manuals for the Gen 2 games, his name's listed as Gold, Silver, or Chris with a C, depending on which version you've got. His original counterpart in the anime had yet another name as well. When he appeared as the protagonist of The Legend of Thunder, his name was Jimmy. For 10 years, virtually every source called him something different.
In Heart Gold and Soul Silver, his name was changed to Ethan, and that's what the Pokemon Company has called him ever since. We're also going to say Ethan today for 2 reasons. Number 1, that's been his official name for over 15 years now, and it's the only name he's had that's been used consistently. Number B, using his name from Pokemon Crystal would get clunky really quickly. Calling the characters Chris and Chris won't go over well in a video format. I know a Chris with a C and no H.
Yeah, there was a Chris with a C and no H on Jeopardy, Chris Panulo. Pokemon Crystal's glitchless speedrun is full of RNG manipulations. By doing specific inputs, you can heavily swing the game's random outcomes in your favor. If you perform the RNG manips correctly, you can start the game with a perfect Totodile, lay in more critical hits, make your opponents miss some of their moves, avoid being spotted by spinning trainers, and eliminate wild encounters on certain routes. You can also manipulate Raikou into existence near Goldenrod City, and use it to carry you through the rest of the game.
In earlier world records, runners also utilized RNG manips to get an early Master Ball and Goldenrod, which they used to catch Raikou. To make these manipulations work, they picked the same settings at the start of each run. The border around the text boxes has to be frame type 6. You have to set the time to 10:01 AM, and you have to pick Chris as your player character. If you choose to play as Ethan instead, the manips that are currently used in the category won't work. Listen to this headline.
Sure.
Death-defying neuroscientist turned OnlyFans model confronts life with memory loss after brutal bike accident caused by a pigeon.
Elias, none of those words belong in that order. That's not the only advantage Chris has either. Whenever you enter a battle, your character's back sprite appears on screen. If you're playing as Chris, every single battle becomes faster because her sprite has less lag than Ethan's does. Ethan's back sprite was created in gold and silver, and said sprite was compressed to save space on the cartridge. To show Ethan on screen, the game has to decompress the sprite first, which is what causes the lag. The same sprite was reused in Crystal version, and it remained compressed like it was in the original Gen 2 games.
Chris is a brand new character in Pokemon Crystal, so her back sprite was created specifically for this game. Pokemon Crystal cartridges had more space than Gold and Silver's, meaning Chris's sprite didn't need to be compressed. In turn, that means her sprite is able to appear on screen faster. Picking Chris saves 1 frame per battle compared to Ethan, which adds up to 2 seconds. 2 seconds across the whole run.
This is about a 3-hour category. It's small, but it's still reasonably significant that you may as well do it, because it's not hard.
I guess not.
RNG manips that use Ethan do exist, and more can be developed at any time. But they're not worth using in this category, since we already know Chris's back sprite gets her through the game faster. The SS Aqua is ever so slightly slower when you use Chris though, because the girl you save on the ship talks a bit less if you chose Ethan. But Chris's faster battle sequences make up for the slight hiccup and then some.
There are many games where you can choose to be a boy or a girl, and the character you don't pick plays a different role in the playthrough. In Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, you can play as either Brendan or May. As soon as you pick a character, the other one becomes your primary rival. Choosing May and making Brendan your rival is best for 2 reasons.
First of all, Brendan talks less as the rival than May does, which means you can scroll through his text boxes a little bit faster. Brendan's rival battles are also easier and more consistent. That especially goes for Rival 2 on Route 110. The battle under Cycling Road is quite difficult in speedruns, regardless of which character you pick. But fighting Brendan is preferable because of the order of his Pokemon. For today, we'll focus on the Pokemon Emerald version of the battle.
Runners pick the Water-type Mudkip as their starter, which is a great choice for casual playthroughs and speedruns alike, but it does have a disadvantage in rival battles. When this little guy evolves into the big guy, Marsh Stomp, it gains the Ground type. That gives it a 4 times weakness to Grass, so Marsh Stomp will take a ton of damage from the rival's Grovyle, even though its Absorb is only 20 power. To win the battle with Marsh Stomp, you have to win the war first.
Extremely loud, incorrect buzzer.
To win the battle with Marsh Stomp, you have to be able to 2-hit KO the rival's Grovyle, otherwise it'll knock you out. Wait, Marsh Stomp is actually bigger than the next one, right?
I don't think so. Like, Swampert goes down on 4 legs is what happens, I think.
Marsh Stomp stands up, that's right.
Yeah,
the only Pokemon in history to stand up and then think, nah, this is not
Mudkip
worth it.
stands up and then goes back down. Runners need to set up 2 X attacks and an X speed before Grovyle comes out. That'll ensure you're strong enough to score a 2-hit KO and fast enough to outspeed it after a mud shot. At this point, your rival will have a Slugma and a Wingull as well, and Slugma is much easier to set up against. May sends out Wingull first, which has a brutal moveset for this battle.
Wingull knows Growl, which lowers your attack stat by 1 stage. Since you're using X attacks to raise your attack stat, Wingull can effectively undo your setup and put you in a sticky situation. If Wingull uses Growl too many times, you'll run out of X items and you won't be able to beat the Grovyle. Absorb is a 2-shot against Marsh Stomp, so you'll simply die if you can't 2-shot it first.
Brendan sends out Slugma first instead. That's also an annoying Pokemon, but it's not as bad as Wingull. Slugma can't mess with your stats in any way, so you can set up your X items relatively safely. It can waste your time by using Yawn to put you to sleep though, and it can also potentially burn you with Ember. The rival battle here is always going to be dicey, but it's less dicey if you're fighting Brendan. I'm gonna tell a lie. None of those words are in the Bible.
That's not true.
That's why I said I was gonna tell a lie.
Neuroscientist, OnlyFans, and bike accident are all in the Bible.
Alright, tell me the verse.
No. Playing as May also makes the Rival 2 battle slightly easier in the remakes. In Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Brendan and May use the same Pokemon in the same order, but having Brendan as your rival is slightly better anyway. Brendan has a minus special defense nature on his Grovyle, whereas May has a neutral nature. That makes it easier to knock out Brendan's Grovyle by screaming at it.
Runners will start by using some X speeds and X special attacks. Then they'll attack with Echoed Voice, which is a 40 base power move at first. But if you spam the move, it'll gain 40 power each turn it's used in a row, up to a maximum of 200. Since Brendan's Grovyle has a lower special defense stat, it's more likely to be one-shot by a powered-up Echoed Voice.
There are even more nature-related optimizations in Pokemon X and Y. This time, you choose between Calem and Serena, and the option you don't choose becomes your main rival once again. When you battle the rival in Coumarine City, they'll be using a Meowstick, which is quite problematic in a speedrun. There are 2 different strategies to win this battle. The primary strat uses Hawlucha, but there's also an alternative that uses Lucario instead.
Pop quiz, what are the other 3 rivals' names?
Water girl.
Extremely loud, incorrect, but let's start with the Hawlucha strat. This guy is a fighting type Pokemon, which makes it weak to 2 of Meowstic's moves. To win this battle with Hawlucha, speedrunners will use Encore, which forces Meowstic to spam its last used move. The goal is to lock it into Fake Out or Light Screen, because either move will fail when used repeatedly. Once you've made Meowstic thoroughly useless, you can set up with Swords Dances to sweep the rival's team.
It's best to play as Serena here, because Calem's Meowstic has a brave nature, which raises attack and lowers speed. That means your Hawlucha is more likely to be faster, which is crucial when you're doing Encore strats. If you're slower than the Meowstic, you might accidentally make it spam Psybeam or Disarming Voice instead, which will basically lose you the battle on the spot. Serena's Meowstic has a lax nature, which doesn't affect speed at all. That means her Meowstic is faster than Calem's, which makes this battle much less consistent. So you should use her as your player character and have Calem be the rival instead.
Hawlucha needs to have at least 69 speed to be faster than Meowstic, and people are going to make jokes about that in the comments. If Hawlucha's any slower than that, you need to use Lucario instead. In this case, you set up a Swords Dance against Meowstic, then sweep with an assortment of physical moves. This backup strat is also easier if you're playing as Serena. As the rival, her Meowstic and Braixen both have defense boosting natures, but none of Calem's Pokemon do. That means it's easier to beat Calem's team with physical moves, so playing as a girl is optimal, regardless of which strat you wind up using.
If you've been enjoying our channel, consider subscribing. You can also become a channel member for as little as 99 cents a month. You'll support the nonsense we do that way, and you'll also be able to see a bunch of deleted scenes videos. Give us money, give us money, give us money. Let's head back to the Johto region, because the girl is faster than the boy in Heart Gold and Soul Silver as well. This time, the reason comes down to the catch tutorial. These games introduced a new female player character called Lyra, because I guess Chris had some scheduling conflicts or something. Anyways, in Johto's remakes, the player character you don't choose becomes an NPC who teaches you how to catch Pokemon. Anyway, in Johto's remake, you say anyway instead of anyways, and it ticks me off.
What is wrong with saying anyway? Oh no.
Anyways is way more natural.
It says whom? If you choose to play as Lyra, Ethan will go into the grass and head straight into the catch tutorial. On the other hand, Lyra will bounce around for a few seconds before realizing the player didn't see what happened because she went too fast. Lyra's tutorial is noticeably longer, which means it's faster to use her as your player character and let Ethan handle the tutorial instead.
The girl is also slightly faster in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, and the reasoning here is also pretty simple. You get to choose between Lucas and Dawn, and the character you don't pick becomes Professor Rowan's assistant. You have several conversations with the assistant during the game, but their dialogue isn't exactly the same. As an example, Lucas will tell Professor Rowan, "You left your briefcase behind at the lake," but Dawn will leave out the word behind.
On the other hand, Lucas describes the starter Pokemon as crucial, whereas Dawn says they're hard to replace. So sometimes Lucas's text boxes are longer, and sometimes Dawn's are. Overall though, Dawn has slightly more dialogue to scroll through, so it's best to choose her as your player character and have Lucas be Rowan's assistant. Believe it or not, anyway sounds more natural to me. Deal with it.
Factually incorrect. Everybody make fun of Matt in the comments.
In what way am I factually incorrect, buddy?
Everyone explain why he's wrong in the comments.
This video gets 0 comments regarding this topic. There was a guy who did that, I think.
Ate an airplane with a fork?
Like somebody ate an entire airplane over the course of a few years.
Did he do it with a fork? Because that was a Borderlands 2 reference.
The reference went over my head. Here he is.
Oh, that's not like a real airplane.
What do you mean? What were you expecting for him to eat an
That's
entire
no Boeing
747?
787.
Oh my
Yeah.
god. Well, it's more plane than you're ever gonna eat.
Are you sure? I've eaten a lot of plastic in my life.
Yeah, but you're not sawing off pieces of a plane and throwing it in your microwave. Not recommended, by the way. Marshtomp is 2'4", 62 pounds. Swampert is 4'11", 180 pounds. Mega Swampert is 6'3", 225.
That is a jacked 225. This guy could probably bench a couple tons.
I mean, how big are football players? Like, would 6'3", 225 cut it in the NFL? He died at 55.
I wonder why.
I mean, he looks older than 55 in the picture.
I wonder why.
Yeah, I guess
Maybe when you're eating cobalt and granite.
I guess eating a plane will do that to a guy. Who would have thunk? That's it. That took us 62 minutes.